What if the greatest strength isn't in what you show, but in what you choose to keep to yourself? In today's world, oversharing is common, but true Stoic power lies in silence, restraint, and quiet confidence. This video is not just about self-control, it's about reclaiming your energy by refusing to explain, impress, or justify yourself to the world. Through the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, you'll learn why discretion is not weakness, it's wisdom. You'll discover the strength of unspoken growth, silent resilience, and invisible virtue. Because not everything needs to be seen to be real, and not everything deserves your energy. So if you're ready to stop proving and start living with clarity, dignity, and self-ownership, this is your reminder. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to live in a way that speaks for itself. Let's begin. Don't let numbers define you. Freedom begins when you let go of labels. Have you ever noticed that the calmest people are often the ones who speak the least about themselves? In a world that demands you to open up, to share, to be honest about everything, sometimes wisdom lies in keeping a part of yourself to yourself, and age is one of those things. When someone asks how old you are, they're not just asking for a number. Behind that question is a string of expectations, judgments, and assumptions. When you're young, you're seen as inexperienced. When you're older, you're seen as declining age. Seemingly an objective figure easily becomes an invisible label society uses to confine you. But you are not a number. You are the choices you make each day. You are the experiences you've lived, the losses you've overcome, and the dreams you're still pursuing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." It's not a threat, it's an awakening. Age only weakens you if you allow it to define you. When you choose not to disclose your age, you're rejecting a societal mold that tries to box you in. You don't need anyone to remind you that you're too old to begin something new. Nor do you need compliments, like you look young for your age to feel worthy. Keeping your age to yourself isn't about shame or secrecy. It's about inviting others to see you, your wisdom, your energy, your presence, instead of reducing you to a number. More importantly, it's about reminding yourself of that first. You can't slow down time, but you can choose how to move through it, unbound, undefined, and unlimited by any numerical milestone. Real freedom begins when you stop living by templates, when you are no longer dictated by others' assumptions. You begin living in truth. And that no number can measure. When you share too much about your financial situation, whether it's success or struggle, you unintentionally hand others the right to judge you. If you're wealthy, you might become a target for favors, loans, or envy. If you're struggling, you may be pitied, misjudged, or excluded from opportunities. Those who live with self-mastery understand that money is a tool, not the compass of life. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." And when you grasp that, your relationship with money changes. No showmanship, no shame, no emotional control over your sense of worth. Self-mastery begins with knowing when to remain silent. No one needs to know how much you have in your account. No one needs to understand the struggles you've endured to gain stability, or the fact that you haven't yet, because real freedom lies in not needing to prove, not being swayed by others' opinions, and not living by their measurements. You are rich, not because you have a lot, but because you can walk away from it and still live fully. You are strong not when you spend without thought, but when you give without needing recognition. Keep your financial matters private, not out of fear, but because you are grounded enough not to seek external validation, and that is a form of wealth no one can ever take away. You can't expect outsiders to understand the depth of a family. They weren't there for the history, the forgiveness, the quiet sacrifices, When you share part of the story, they view the whole through a narrow lens. They can't help but judge. And that judgment starts to seep into how you view your loved ones. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." It's a reminder that when loved ones hurt us, instead of rallying outside support, we must begin the healing from within. Silence is not avoidance. It is a space for reflection, for listening, and sometimes for loving without having to explain. Emotional mastery doesn't mean suppression. It means discernment, choosing what to say and to whom. Not everyone deserves to know the most sacred parts of your home, and not everything spoken aloud brings relief. Sometimes, it only deepens the wound because it's seen through eyes that don't understand. If healing is possible within your family, it requires a safe space, not public exposure. When you practice discretion, you are creating that space. You are not denying the pain. You are protecting what's important from becoming fodder for someone else's conversation. Don't trade what's sacred for fleeting sympathy. Keep it close, not because it's perfect, but because it deserves to be guarded with the deepest respect. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Some things happening in your body are beyond your control, but letting them define who you are, that is entirely in your hands. When you choose to keep your health situation private, it's not a denial of reality. It's a conscious act of protecting your mental energy. You still seek help when needed from doctors, from trusted loved ones, but you don't let the whole world in on a deeply personal journey. You are not just a patient. You are a human being with memories, experiences, things you're doing, and things still unfinished. You may carry a condition within your body, but you also carry strength, courage, and a mind still rich with gifts to offer. Emotional mastery isn't just about controlling anger or sadness. It's also about not letting health worries drain your daily life energy. A meaningful life doesn't mean a life without illness. It means a full life, in spite of limitations. Remember, illness may exist within you, but you are not that illness. Keep it to yourself, not out of fear of others knowing, but because you've chosen to live with it in peace, strength, and depth. True power is not in complaining, but in the intentional silence with which you face it and still keep moving forward. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And when it comes to love, those thoughts must be nourished with mindfulness, knowing what should be preserved and what should remain unspoken, because a relationship only deepens when it's not pulled into a game of showing off or comparison. You may be in a loving relationship. You and your partner may be sharing something beautiful, something real, but does it need to be told, proven to others, to be meaningful? Or is it the quiet guarding of that love from outside judgment and expectation that makes it sacred? Intimacy isn't just physical closeness. It's a space where you can be fully yourself, free of judgment, without having to perform to please anyone else. And that sanctuary is only truly safe when there is no third party involved, not through stories, glances, or distant comments. Many people share their relationships not because they're happy, but because they're insecure. They speak out to receive validation that you're in the right relationship. You're okay, you're worthy. But that need for validation weakens the bond, because the affirmation comes from outside, not from within. Seneca once advised, "Enjoy the present pleasures in such a way as not to injure future ones." This wisdom applies not just to desire, but to emotional intimacy. Let that joy grow in silence, where only the two of you understand it, hold it, and cherish it. When giving becomes a moral choice, not a performance, we're often taught to be good, to help others, to give when we can, and that's a beautiful thing. But in a world where every act can quickly become content, kindness sometimes shifts from an inward virtue into an outward performance. You help someone, and a part of you wants others to know. You donate, and it comes with a post or a photo, not because you're fake, but because you want to feel valued, to be seen, and in that moment, you begin to dilute the purity of goodness. You trade something sacred for a brief round of applause. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't waste the rest of your life living according to other people's standards." True kindness, if it is pure, doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need praise. It doesn't need to be known, because the act stems from what is right, not what is noticed. A kind act, when bound to recognition, loses its deeper meaning. It is no longer something you choose to do, but something you must do to maintain an image, to avoid disappointment, or to preserve a reputation. And when that happens, you are no longer free. You become a servant to perception. Seneca once warned, "A gift loses its value when accompanied by the expectation of gratitude." If you truly want to help, don't demand thanks. Don't expect public acknowledgement. Don't look for appreciation, just to give and let go help. And forget that is the mark of a noble spirit. Not everyone wants to be seen as the helped. Not everyone is comfortable being perceived as needing your kindness. Your publicity, even if unintended, can strip away their dignity. And what you thought was goodwill may become a burden. Emotional mastery also means restraining the desire to be recognized as kind living. With value means your actions quietly touch others' lives without anyone needing to know what you did. And true resilience sometimes lies in giving in silence, so that kindness stays as pure as it was meant to be. Kindness needs no stage. A truly ethical person is someone who can move through a long day with a light heart, knowing they did the right thing, even if no one saw it, and that is enough. Honor doesn't need to be proved. Just live right, and people will sense it. There's a quiet truth that few recognize. The more someone has achieved, the more likely they are to fall into the trap of wanting to prove their worth. You've overcome hardship. You've worked tirelessly for decades. You've built a family, a career, a reputation, and part of you wants the world to know, not to boast, but to avoid being forgotten. But the moment you start defending your honor with words, you begin to lose your inner calm. You become more sensitive to others' indifference. You're easily wounded by unfair criticism. You react when someone fails to acknowledge the effort you've put in. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Honor is not something others bestow upon you. It arises naturally from living and acting rightly." In Stoic philosophy, honor doesn't come from recounting what you've done. It comes from continuing to live that way, even when no one sees or applauds it. You don't need to remind others of who you were, what you accomplished, or how much you've sacrificed, because a person of true value doesn't need to affirm anything. They just keep walking their path, letting actions speak. Others will notice, or they won't, but that doesn't change who you are. Publicizing your achievements, revisiting old victories, or recounting the good you've done may earn admiration, but it may also breed envy, isolate you within your own pride, and worse, make you dependent on recognition. Seneca once warned, "If your worth depends on others' admiration, then it's not true worth. Because if people praise you today, they may turn their backs tomorrow. You can't control others' opinions, but you can control how you live." Emotional mastery is not letting praise or silence define your worth. Living with purpose means you don't need fame to keep doing what's right. And true resilience is not being shaken, even when no one mentions you, no one thanks you, no one applauds you. The most honorable people aren't those who demand to be heard. They're the ones who live in such a way that others fall silent and pay attention because they sense something in you. a dignity that comes from within, unpretentious, unshakable, unprovable, and untouchable. Forgiveness is self-liberation. Don't let anyone live rent-free in your mind. You've been insulted before, hurt by harsh words, by disrespectful behavior, or by cold actions that left a mark naturally. You remember for a long time. Maybe you've retold the story many times to loved ones, friends, even yourself, as a way of affirming that you didn't deserve that treatment. But every time you revisit the pain, you grant it more power. You relive that moment again, and the same emotions return. Anger flares. Resentment tightens in your chest. You think you're releasing, but you're actually reinforcing the chain. Epictetus once said, "If someone can hurt you, it's because your mind has allowed it." This doesn't deny your pain, it simply highlights a truth. Suffering lasts as long as you cling to it. Letting go is the act of strength. Forgiveness isn't weakness, and it's not forgetfulness. It's the conscious decision to stop carrying a burden that no longer serves your life. It's refusing to let a past insult live endlessly in your mind, affecting your mood, behavior, and self-worth. Negative emotions, held too long, don't just hurt, they become a warped lens. You start seeing everyone as suspicious, every word as an attack. You begin overprotecting yourself, living in anxiety, losing your natural ease. Forgiveness, therefore, isn't just an act toward others. It's a noble act for yourself. You deserve to be free. You deserve to breathe lightly. You deserve to walk through a new day unchained by the past, unburdened by a hurtful word from years ago, still affecting how you feel today. Emotional mastery means choosing what nourishes you and releasing what drains you. Living with value means not letting others dictate your state of mind, and the deepest form of resilience is being able to smile and move forward, not because you forgot, but because you no longer need to remember. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to reclaim peace within yourself. And sometimes, silence is the strongest answer to a world full of noise and ignorance. Emotions, like waves, rise and fall. When they're at their peak, you can't see the bottom. And the greatest danger is believing that those emotions are absolute truth. You're angry, so you must be right. You're hurt, so someone must be wrong. But hours later, everything shifts. You look back and realize some things should have been held back. You should have waited until the emotion cooled before speaking. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let reason be the guardian of your tongue." That doesn't mean suppress everything. It means remembering that not all emotions deserve to be voiced immediately, especially those born from instinct rather than deep understanding. When you share emotions without fully understanding them, you're not communicating, you're venting. And venting can hurt others, distort relationships, and most importantly, cause you to lose control over yourself. Emotional mastery doesn't mean permanent silence. It means knowing the right time to speak and the right time to pause, to understand why you're reacting, to trace where that pain is coming from, to ask yourself, am I sharing to connect or to discharge anger? Only then can your words become bridges instead of blades. Living with intention means you don't get swept away by every emotional wave. You choose what's worth saying and say it mindfully. You know that sometimes a deep breath, a moment of silence, or a slow nod can heal more than any angry outburst ever could. And naturally, you want to share. You want someone to hear you, to affirm that what you're thinking is right, is possible. You want support, recognition, motivation. But the moment you speak of it too soon, you place your budding dream in the hands of the world, a place where doubt, disapproval, or even silent indifference can crush it before it ever takes root. Epictetus once said, "Don't seek applause for what you haven't yet done." This doesn't mean you must isolate your dreams, but it means knowing when to nurture and when to reveal every seed needs shade to grow roots before it reaches for the sun, and every dream, too, must be nourished in private until it becomes strong enough, clear enough, deep enough to withstand the gaze of others. When you speak of a plan that you yourself haven't fully understood, you're vulnerable to conflicting advice, skeptical glances, or subtle envy you may not detect. Then, you begin to doubt yourself. You start adjusting your dream to make it more realistic, more reasonable, and in doing so, you lose the essence of what first made it alive. Emotional mastery is choosing not to let fleeting inspiration become a rushed promise. Living with intention means knowing what's growing inside you and guarding it with quiet resolve without needing to announce it to the world. True resilience is when you continue building, preparing, learning in silence, no sharing, no validation, just progress. Because once the dream is ready, it will speak for itself. The results will be louder than words, and the silence that once sheltered you will become the firm foundation for all that you've built. Let the world see you when you are ready. Until then, tend quietly, for the greatest things often grow in silence and bloom unexpectedly, just like you. And you feel out of place. You live simply, they say you're poor. You're introspective, they say you're strange. You avoid arguments, they say you're weak. You don't boast about success, they say you have nothing to say. You could argue, you could try to explain, but you'll soon realize the more you speak, the more you lose the peace you've protected. Because the more you seek to be understood, the further you step away from the quiet space where your strength resides. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Live according to your values and ignore the chatter of others." That Stoic wisdom is not easy to practice, especially when you're walking against the current. But in that solitude, you'll discover something essential. You don't need anyone to stand with you as long as you don't betray yourself. Belief doesn't need to be declared. It needs to be lived. Integrity isn't in what you say you'll do, but in what you do when no one is watching. When you hold your sacred values close, your beliefs, your life code, your ethics, you're choosing to live honestly, without chasing approval, without compromising to please, without straining to be liked. Emotional mastery means not reacting to misunderstanding. Living with value means being strong enough not to need external validation for the path you're on. And sometimes resilience isn't about confronting, it's about continuing quietly. You don't need to be understood, you just need to live true to yourself. And that is the deepest victory a mature soul can attain. Not needing praise, not needing proof, just needing to live rightly and feel peace in every choice you make. No one needs to understand your beliefs, so long as you never lose them.